He's on the phone. He is here. The Monday, October 25th, 2021 regular meeting of the Paris City Council is hereby called to order at 5:30 p.m. For the purpose of this meeting, there is a quorum of the council present. Item number 2, Mr. Gene Anderson will deliver the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mayor Pro Tem Hughes. Please rise.
May we pray? Heavenly Father, we thank you for the outpouring of blessings that you've given us today and pray that you might continue that, Father, as our council meets to conduct the city of the business. Give them wisdom and understanding, and Father, might they conduct this meeting and make decisions in such a way, Father, that it would glorify your name. We ask you forgive us where we failed you, for asking in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 4 is the Citizens Forum. Persons desiring to address the council must limit their presentation to no more than 2 minutes. Unless an item is posted on the agenda, the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the council from responding to any comments other than to refer the matter to a future agenda, to an existing policy, or to a staff person with specific information. Claims against the city council members or employees, as well as individual personal appeals, are not appropriate for Citizens Forum. If necessary, the city council may convene into executive session under Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code regarding any item on this agenda. The public forum is now open. If there is anyone who wishes to address the council, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Keith Flowers. My address is 715 34th Northeast. I've been associated with the Lamar County Humane Association for the last 8 years, and I've been the president of the board for the last 5 years. And as y'all probably already know, there's been a lot of negative publicity going around on Facebook about one of our animal control officers. I just want to share my experience. I work closely with these animal control officers in the police department on a daily basis. The animal control officer is a very, very difficult job. Most people in this room would not take that job for 4 times the salary that they pay. It's a job that you couldn't pay me enough money to get me to take the job. Guy Osborne is one of our animal control officers, and in my opinion, he does a very good job as an animal control officer. And I just want to share a couple of examples of some things that I have personally witnessed about this man where he showed a great deal of compassion. For example, I have personally been on site when we had puppies under a house. He went above and beyond that he did not have to do. He crawled under the house, brought the puppies out to us so we could feed the puppies so they would not starve. He was covered from head to toe with mud. There was an incident where some folks called us. There was a kitten trapped in a wall. They could hear the kitten meowing. Mike and Guy, the 2 ACOs, they borrowed a saw from me. They went over and with the lady's permission, they cut into the wall and they found the kitten. We got the kitten, got bottle and nursed the kitten and saved the kitten. These are but 2 examples of the compassion that I have seen this man show. I am not here advocating at all that we go around that animals be shot, but I mean, I don't think the whole story on this incident's been a 3-year ordeal. The long and the short of it is the only way that we can solve this problem and keep this from happening again is to spay and neuter of animals. I'm going to challenge the folks that are on Facebook that are being critical of Mr. Osborne. Come and help us. When we're up here asking for money for our spay-neuter program, come up here and speak in favor and help us. We have a low-cost spay and neuter event this Saturday at the fairgrounds, making spay and neuter to any resident of Lamar County. Come out and volunteer. Come and help us. Be a part of the solution.
Your time's up.
Thank
I'll give you
you.
a few seconds to wrap it up.
But just, I urge these people, realize spay and neuter is the answer. Be a part of the solution and come and help us, and let's make sure that this doesn't happen again. But Guy's not the bad guy here. Thank you.
Mr. Flowers. Anyone else wishing to speak?
James O'Brien, 3150 Bonham Street. I just want to back up what Mr. Flowers had to say, and I just want to note that the AVMA guidelines for euthanasia have been around since 1963. On page 7, it says, due to lack of control over free-ranging wildlife, the stress associated with close human contact, the use of a firearm may be the most appropriate means of euthanasia. Okay? Animal control officers have one of the hardest jobs in town, and their primary goal is to protect human health. Animal depopulation is an essential strategy in mitigating deadly disease transmission. Now, I know that there's a lot of people out there that have had the mindset and goal to get him fired. If he's terminated from his position, then what? I mean, what's going to happen? Is it going to teach him some sort of lesson? What's going to happen is we're going to have no animal control officers. That leave us with 0. There's not going to be a whole lot of people running to submit their application, okay? I've spent an extensive amount of time gathering information from multiple sources. They're all the same story. I think the city of Paris has used all other available options for the past 3 years to try to capture that animal. All of them were unsuccessful on multiple occasions. Animal depopulation is a necessary evil, and as gruesome as this particular incident appears, believe me when I tell you that it pales in comparison to the hundreds euthanized every year. We have a problem here, and we have had this problem for many years. The problem is not with any one particular employee or the department policy. If this dog had been spayed, we would have avoided the unnecessary killing of her and dozens of her puppies every year for the last 3 years. The root of the problem lies with responsible animal ownership and public policy, beginning with this city council here. I want to urge everybody that has issues with the animal control officer to join us, as Keith said, join us in working together to raise public awareness and to work with the city council to adopt good policies that will address this issue at the root cause, which is animal population control. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. O'Brien. Anyone else wishing to speak? Thank you. Please state your name and address.
My name is Kelly Stelmack. My address is 4226 Castlegate Drive in Paris. On October the 15th, I witnessed the dog being shot. We have named her Abby. It was the most gut-wrenching thing I've ever seen. My son and I were driving down, and we saw animal control carrying a rifle, hunting this dog. And he had shot her in the stomach, rib area. You could tell she was pregnant or she had just had babies. And she was shot in her back, in her butt. And I yelled at him to stop, and he wouldn't stop. He just kept hunting her. And I lost sight of him, and we went down to Pine Bluff, and I made a turn and saw him reloading his rifle to shoot her again. And I got out on foot and started trying to follow her to render aid to her. And she suffered so bad. There has to be a better way to do this. There has to be a better way. These dogs are better than humans. They love us unconditionally. We use them in our police force. We use them in our military. This was not a feral dog. This dog, I was within 10 feet of her the whole time. And she crawled under a porch, and not one time did she ever attack me. She was not feral. She was very well fed. Somebody had been taking care of her, and they shot and killed her because she was having babies every year. What is wrong with that? If a man can walk up and shoot a dog in the stomach, he can dart her. He could tranquilize her. But she suffered for over an hour and a half. And she was so feral that the man shooting her was able to stick his hand under there and give her a shot to put her to sleep. This is how feral she was. She wasn't feral at all.
Your 2 minutes is up. I'll give you a few seconds to wrap up your remarks, please.
We have started a petition to change this. I want this changed legally. I want the laws changed to protect these animals. There has to be a better way. There has to be a better way, and I want to come together as a community to fix this. so this never happens again. Thank you.
very much. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, the public forum is now closed. Item number 5 is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are approved by a single action of the council, with such approval applicable to all items appearing on the consent agenda. A council member may request any item to be removed from the consent agenda and considered as a separate item. Does any member wish to remove an item from the agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Mahir. Mr. Pankaj. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. All right. Motion passes 5-0. Item number 12 on the regular agenda, discuss, conduct a public hearing, and act on an ordinance regarding the petition of Michael McAfee for a change in zoning from a two-family dwelling to F to a multiple family dwelling district number 2, MF2, in the city of Paris, block 220A, lot 9A and 6, located at 1905 East Price Street, Lamar County Appraisal District number 22040. Mr. Mack, you have a presentation, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Michael McAfee initially requested the zoning change from two-family duplex to multifamily apartment to permit a planned remodel of this former, is it now vacant building, former daycare in the community. And he initially thought it would be used for residential dormitory purposes. He subsequently withdrew that application. We went ahead and held the public hearing anyways on the item, and it was simply withdrawn at that point. He has since decided to move forward with the purchase. As indicated, he's not certain what the remodeling of that structure will be used for, but it is for residential purposes. So we are moving the process forward again. The Planning Commission took a look at this at their public hearing at their last meeting, and they took some testimony. There was some concern about the narrowness of Price Street. That street was just as narrow as it was during the daycare operation. That's not the principal means of access to the site. It's coming off Lamar Street North. And so they recommended, as staff does, that you approve the rezoning of this property.
All right. I will now open the public hearing and ask that anyone who wishes to come forward and speak in support or opposition of this item, please state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Any discussion, council?
I had a quick question on this, or actually a comment. Well, one, Mr. Mack, it's good to see you doing a lot better. I will say, in terms of Price Street, I do agree. I don't think that it's a hindrance by any means of passing this. But I will say, in my opinion, I think that we could do a little bit better job of maintaining that road. I think it's fine how it has been. I don't think it will hinder this gentleman's plans, but I think that it would be well served for the city to, in the future, look at maybe straightening out that road, helping out the gutters on the side, figuring something out in that regard. I appreciate that notion. Otherwise, I myself don't have any other issues with this plan going forward. I think it's a good plan, and it's a vacant building that really needs some help.
Any other questions or discussion?
Thank you,
I have
Councilmember
just-
Pankaj, for your comment. Our Public Works Director is here tonight. I'm sure he made note of that.
Okay. I just have one question. A dormitory just sounds like an unusual use for a building that far from Paris Junior College. And then it seems a little up in the air. If not a dormitory, then what all would be allowed under the MF2 zoning?
So, for example, what might be his alternate plan is instead of creating a congregate dining area, individual dorm rooms with bathroom facilities in them, they may look at creating remodeling so that it's individual apartment dwelling units on the property and independent living, and not have a shared common area for the tenants, unless they do some other type of thing other apartments do, which is like a party room or a gathering space for use by the residents. But it would involve independent cooking facilities, complete living facilities like most apartments would have. I think that's the direction he's going. But
Okay.
be that as it may, the ordinance would allow up to 3-story apartments, and if you wanted to completely reconstruct, remodel the site, that's what the ordinance allows.
All right, I will hear a motion.
Make a motion to change it from two-family dwelling to multiple-family dwelling, LCAD number 22040.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none. All in favor of this zoning change from MF2 or two-family dwelling to family dwelling district 2, MF2? Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Mr. Mack, item number 13, discuss, conduct a public hearing, and act on an ordinance regarding the petition of Mark Cunningham for a change in zoning from an agricultural district A to a one-family dwelling district number 1, SF1, for lots over 1.5 acres, and one-family dwelling district 2, SF2, for lots less than 1.5 acres in the Stone Ridge Estates Edition, located north of FM 195. Mr. Mack?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Mr. Cunningham has been working with the city to develop the next phase 10 of the Stone Ridge Edition. The Planning Commission has approved the preliminary plat for that next phase. As a part of that, we talked with Mr. Cunningham about basically implementing our plan, bringing the current use of the property in conformity with the zoning. That simply hasn't been done since it was annexed, and our default annexation to zoning is agricultural. So we requested that he make application, which he has done, to address everything in the city limits, to bring those changes based on the lot size, either SF1 for the large estate type lots and SF2 for the smaller. And those are all listed as a part of the information here on the request. And so the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on this, and they unanimously recommended to the council that this be approved this evening. And we would recommend the same as staff to the council as well.
Thank you. I will now open the public hearing and ask that anyone who wishes to come forward and speak in support or opposition of this item, please state your name and address. Seeing none, the public hearing is now closed. Any discussion or questions? All right, I will hear a motion.
I move that we approve the zoning change from agriculture to SF1 and SF2.
All right, a motion has been heard. I'll take a second.
A second.
Thank you. A motion and a second to change this zoning from single-family 1, from agricultural district to single-family 1 for lots over 1.5 acres, and one-family dwelling district number 2, SF2, for lots less than 1.5 acres. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 14, discuss and act on an ordinance authorizing the issuance of a solid waste collection permit to County Waste Collections Incorporated pursuant to Section 12.04.42D of the Code of Ordinances. Passage of this ordinance does require 5 affirmative votes. Ms. Ellis?
Good evening.
Mayor, can we table this item since we only have 5 of us here?
City Attorney, what would you recommend?
Certainly, you can table this item. These have typically been approved pretty much pro forma by council. If it does not pass, a member voting against passage could bring it up at the next meeting for reconsideration. Of course, that would require that member to want to do so, but certainly it's well within your purview to table it so that you can have a greater number of council people to vote on this.
All right. Any discussion? There's been a motion to table. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second to table item number 14. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 15, consider an act on a resolution entering into a contingent fee contract with Abernathy, Roeder, Boyd, and Hewlett, P.C., pursuant to the Texas Code Section 6.30 and Government Code 2254.1036, said contract being for the collection of delinquent taxes owed to the City of Paris. Mr. Path, you have a presentation, please?
Yes. In 2013, the City Council awarded a contract with Pounders Law Firm to provide delinquent tax services, which is particularly whenever people do not pay their property taxes, we do have to pursue a legal process in order to pursue those, as well as the foreclosure process. When we have delinquent taxes over a number of years, we will eventually foreclose on the property and transit into someone else's hands who maintain it. And so Mr. Pounders has worked with us that time. He's done an excellent job with us. He's very responsive. He's here tonight. I'll have him get up here in a second here, but he does an excellent job. We enjoy working with him. He's a pleasure to work with. And so last year he informed us that he was partnering with Abernathy, Roeder, Boyd, and Hewlett, ARBH, and he was looking to expand his services. Obviously, they have a bigger office and to work with. So he's been partnering with them this last year. This year he's decided to close dissolve his operation and become a partner with ARBH. And so with that, he's requesting that we sign a new contract with ARBH and provide the same services as before, so we'll have access to more resources, more personnel, but we will continue to work with Mr. Pounders going forward with this process here. And so same pricing as before, and so nothing else will change. So we would ask that you please approve this contract with ARBH, and I'll turn over to Mr. Pounders to say a few words real quick. So,
Welcome,
I
Mr.
promise.
Pounders.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me out here tonight, and I'll be very, very brief. First off, as I mentioned, came in 2013. The City of Paris had a very unique problem. There were some properties in town that had more taxes on them than the property was worth, and I asked how many that might be, and I was said 50, maybe 75 at the most. And it turned out just under 1,000 properties, literally more than 1 out of 4 accounts in the town. Since we've gotten that, it's a moving target. More properties keep going into that, but despite the moving target, we've gotten that down to the low 600s, and we are continuing to work on that with several projects on that. And I'm very happy to do that. And that is in addition to regular standard litigation and then, of course, the general collections. Let me start out and let me tell you who Abernathy Roeder is. It's a brand new firm. It's only been in McKinney since 1876. And it has been led by an Abernathy since the very beginning. Richard Abernathy's just down the hall from me. We have 22 lawyers and a fairly big staff. The tax collection section there goes back 40 years. But the gentleman, the attorney that ran that section for 40 years, unexpectedly died in March of last year. It was not COVID. He just out of nowhere. He wasn't feeling good and didn't wake up. And in June of last year, they did ask me to step in and run their section for them. As far as our interaction with the city of Paris, nothing's going to change. I am still your main contact, and I still love this town, and I'm not going to give you guys up at all. And I'm just going to be able to do more for you. We have enhanced bankruptcy protection. I have a staff that knows this business very well, and they're helping me so much. So I thank you so much for your faith in me and letting me be your lawyer for the last 8 years as the Pounders Law Firm, and I look forward to moving forward with you again as part of Abernathy Road or Boyd and Hullett.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Pounders.
you.
Any discussion or questions? I will entertain a motion to act on the resolution on the fee contract with ARBH.
I move that we approve the agreement for the collections of delinquent taxes with Abernathy Road or Boyd and Hewlett PC, and authorize the city manager to sign.
Thank you, Mr. Pankaj. Is there a second?
Second.
I hear a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 16, discuss and approve the purchase of a backup generator for the Pat Mays intake facility in an amount of $560,000 using American Rescue Plan Act funding, and authorize addenda number 2 with resource management and consulting services for third-party administration in an amount of $8,000, and authorize the city manager to sign. Do you have a presentation, Mr. Harris?
Very briefly, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, good evening. Just as we have done with the ground storage facility, pump station facility generator, Utilities is always looking for opportunities to shore up operations, to reduce risk and vulnerability to our operations, to our system. And in discussion with the city manager, the topic of our Pat Mays intake pumping station came up, and we viewed this as another good opportunity to reduce that vulnerability even further. And since we have the ARPA funding available, we saw this as the right way to go. So we're here tonight to ask for your approval. It will require two things: your approval of the amount for the generator at Pat Mays Intake, and also the addendum to Mr. Edwards' contract as a consultant.
All right. Any discussion or questions?
I will say, I'm taking part in some of y'all's planning sessions with the engineer, and I'm pretty impressed with y'all's plans and your willingness to work to try to get what you need. And I know that this topic came up here recently in regards to the generator, absolutely needed, and we cannot afford our community to stop on the water in the case of a big freeze or electrical outage or what have you. So I think this is a good plan.
Thank you.
How many KW generator is that, or
1,000.
1,000? Wow.
Yes.
Well, I think we're fortunate to have the CARES Act funding.
Absolutely.
So that it does not come out of our local tax dollars. Any other discussion? I'll hear a motion.
I move that we approve the purchase of the Pat Mays intake generator using ARPA funding, as well as addendum number 2 for RMC services.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
All right, 2 seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Item number 17, discuss and act on a recommendation from the Traffic Commission to consider approving the short-term traffic stop project in the downtown area. Mr. Mack?
Thank you again, Mayor, members of council. As you're fully aware, you were at a joint work session with your Traffic Commission and your Main Street Advisory Board on the 5th of October. Pleased to report we are continuing to work with TxDOT on implementing this 90-day trial to create a stop-and-go environment in our downtown. This is moving forward. In addition to that, please report we're working with a group of students from the Texas A&M University in Commerce. Our AV director here is in that class, and he offered, and so we're working on the students to develop a marketing plan on this program for the community. We were talking about doing some surveying during the 90-day period. We're going to be certainly surveying and studying the traffic counts, the speed rates through the downtown, and we are still working with our collaborative partner, TxDOT, on this, as well as the Lamar County Chamber, to put this whole thing together. And so it's moving along nicely. I think I just want to maybe touch again on some of the points. We're working to develop a slogan so that we can give the project a title and a name. We've developed, in cooperation with the Chamber, a draft flyer or information that will be put out in a variety of means. We are looking for different forms of media to get the word out and the message out, including some signage along the route, some radio discussion at some point, we hope, possibly some information in the local newspaper about the project. Again, this is a result of working to implement the city's comprehensive plan. This is a downtown plan element. Approximately 3 years ago, with the tool design firm that was here, this is just a first step, as we have discussed, to bring forward the reversion of a 60-year pattern of one-way street systems here in the city back to two-way traffic. And so instead of trying to bite off the whole enchilada, so to speak, in one bite, we're trying to take a short-term step to measure, monitor, and evaluate the functionality of creating stop signs instead of the much more expensive cost of traffic signalization upgrades, which may cost upwards of $500,000 per intersection just to put in additional traffic signals, lights for the two-way direction. So this is the first step. We do have a process laid out. This is the final step in the city's approval and recommendation to partner with TxDOT, and that is planned to go into effect November 15th. At the work session discussion that was initially planned for 30 days. According to the Highway Department, it does need to go for 90 days, and so that was really the only change in the initial direction at this point. So with that, we're looking again for the final endorsement this evening from the council, and then we will move forward with launching into our marketing campaign to move this forward in the next week or less.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Any discussion? All right, I'll hear a motion.
I move that we approve this 90-day short-term plan.
All right, a motion. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Thank you. A motion and a second to act on the recommendation from the Traffic Commission for a short-term traffic stop project in the downtown area. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Mack. Item number 18, discuss and act on an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Paris, Texas, amending the City of Paris Code of Ordinances by amending Article 4-11, Fence Regulations, Article 4.11.05, Permit and Inspections, providing a repealer clause, providing a severability clause, providing a savings clause, providing a penalty clause, and providing an effective date. Mr. Mack again.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. So just to take you back to April 12th and 26th of this year, that's the first month they started here, we got into a little discussion at the Citizen Forum about fences. So here we are back several months after that. I'm continuing to work closely with all fence questions and permits that come in just as a part of this period of transition between issues and the amendment of the ordinance. And so what I have now put together before you, including the review by our city manager and our city attorney, is an amendment to this ordinance. It's approximately 11 pages. It's based upon our code that was adopted back in 2008, and we're making some amendments to that to address the main provisions that council identified through that follow-up meeting and discussion, what direction that you wanted the staff to take with regard to amending the ordinance. So I'm not going to go through the details of each change, but what I am going to do is talk to you about the main sections of the ordinance that we have addressed. First of all was the permit requirements. So once we determined that this is something that we spend a great deal of time in, and it's the sort of thing that the council concurred with the staff recommendation that we eliminate the permit requirement for the majority of all fences that are going through our office. There was some look at the cost of what that was over a period of time, and it's one of the things that it looks like we're spending a lot more time on dealing with this and enforcing the standards and permit inspections than we're obviously collecting back in permit fees for fences. And so the only exception to that, it would be instances where the fence, as a part of our study, rises to a height greater than 7 feet. According to the building code, there has to be some structural analysis done to determine wind loading on the fence to make sure that it's correctly designed and isn't going to fall over on somebody's property. So that was one change. Also, anytime under the building code that there is a mechanized gate that opens and closes, that also absolutely triggers a permit for that under the code. So that would be the two instances where we would still address permits. Also, when it's in a historic district, there would still be a certificate of appropriateness in order to get a fence located in the yard based on the historic district requirements. That would be through the HPC, but it wouldn't still necessarily trigger a permit. Another thing we addressed is the fence height requirements. Initially, my recommendation to you was that we reduce the maximum height. Again, after study of surrounding communities, we found out that they still could go up to 8 feet in a number of them. And so we didn't want to reduce that. But what we are saying now is that if they want to go over 7 feet, now you got to provide the structural analysis. So one of our fence contractors in town actually sent me some information that was available through a firm that actually helps assist with the wind loading calculations. So I suspect that when we get this first one, it'll probably be done once, and maybe the ability to reuse some of that information for the same type of fence, so we're not putting a structural engineering obligation on fences every single time. But for the most part, we'll be able to address it in that fashion. The other important thing that I determined as a part of this was the number of variances that this community has issued for fences going in front yards over time. And so I've come back even after that discussion and said, I think what the ordinance ought to allow us to do is to grant shorter fences in front yards so that we're not routinely bringing these as variances and approve, an extra time and delay to have to go through that process and spend another fee, just to put up a short fence in the front yard. So we've made provision for that, similar to what's allowed in the historic districts right now today. The main issue that brought this up, of course, was the orientation of the facing of the fence. And with the council's direction, the ordinance has been rewritten to allow on interior lots, they can face the sides and the rear yard, whichever direction that they determine or they want, so that we address what that main concern was. And with the exception of any of the sides facing a public street, on a corner lot, it would be 2 sides. And if there is public property or parks or other land uses adjacent to it, say in the rear yard, then they would be under the same requirement as well. And again, they won't have to go and get a permit. What we'll do is continue working with the public, explaining the regulations, offering them probably in the form either of the full details of the ordinance, or we may make a pamphlet, a handout, assisting them with better understanding how the process works, and then we'll wish them well on their way, and until we hear from a complaint, then we'll of course still go out and address it as we do normally with any other complaint. One last thing is I wanted to address a couple of very minor technical changes in this ordinance that is not in your packets. We felt was appropriate to address following review with the manager and the attorney as late as today. It's on page 5, and what's in blue here would be the new language tonight. So we're just making it very clear here at the last part that says where it shall face installing parties' property. So that was one minor change. The next minor change here in blue is on the top of page 8, and we're just changing the title of this from responsibilities not just of permit applicant, but of the fence or property owner, so that it's very clear, because the property could change hands over time, and it's no longer an applicant, it's whoever owns the fence or owns the property. And then we just combined two, it was a duplicative requirement at the end of the ordinance here that I took A and B. I was on one more page down.
Section 006.
.006. Okay, excuse me, it's on page 8 of the ordinance document. I simply took A and B and combined them into one paragraph. It was the same requirements, and we just combined them. So those are the 3 minor technical changes. With that, answer any questions you may have about this. I know it's taken a little bit of time to get us to this point, but I think we've arrived at what the council was looking for. In every point I've discussed this with people who are entertaining the idea of putting a fence up. They're pleased that the changes that we're making, and so I think it's addressing the citizen needs, the landowners, as well as the council's desire. So with that, staff is recommending approval this evening.
All right, any discussion?
I just have one comment. I know around the time that I got on council, this was a heavy topic, a big issue. And it looks like you've taken a couple of months to really do your homework, put it together, and present it in a way that it's laid out, layman terms, it's all put together. So I appreciate this, and I hope that everything that you present going forward is very much in that fashion, because it seems like this is what you do. I appreciate you researching it and really getting it and reaching out to the community and seeing if they're okay with this. And it sounds like, even from my constituents that I've talked to, they haven't had an issue with this, that those that have reached out to me, they haven't had an issue with this. It seems like it's been a pretty good deal thus far, so I like it.
It was a very thorough backup, Mr. Mack. I've read magazines that were shorter. But it is very well laid out. I agree with Mahir, and we appreciate your thoroughness and attention to detail on that. If there are no further questions or discussion, I'll hear that we approve amendments to the fence regulations according to City Code Article 4.11. Motion?
I move that we recommend approval of the amendments to the fence regulation updating City Code Article 411.
A sec, thank you. There's a motion and a second. All in favor of passing this, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 19, discuss selling property located at 301 Bonham Street and provide direction to staff. Mr. Mack?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I believe I have one more item for you this evening. So I was approached by, in fact, 3 different parties interested in some redevelopment of this property at 301 Bonham. I think in your packet you have an aerial photo of the site, some pictures of the site. Obviously not very good looking, and that's because when this building collapsed years ago, the city went in and cleaned it up, but we didn't remove the foundations so it could be like mowed grass. And it's difficult to mow. This just can only be weed whipped, and it's something that our parks and code enforcement takes care of on a routine basis. And so the intent when the city accepted the property as donation was to see it used for public parking. And since that time, the council has not proceeded with improving this as a public parking lot, but the 2 individuals that approached me indicated some interest in creating a parking lot for their use of their adjoining property, but not to create it as a private restricted parking, but to make it, available to the public when their tenants aren't using it, some of which might be, signed or listed as reserved parking only for tenants of, in this case, the adjoining property to the south on Grand. And so since that time, one of the interested parties has indicated they're backing out on their interest to purchase it. There is still one individual that is interested in doing so. Of course, in order to do this, we've got to go through a public process. And so this is really just the first step on this. We do think that we want to try to recover as much of our expenses, up to nearly $40,000 or more, cleaning up the property with the demolition work. If we can get as much of that as we can, great. Right now, the property is valued in the neighborhood of $23,000 to $25,000 on the tax assessment rolls. So we'll have to go through the process. We put it out for public bid, then that would then be received. And then if there's a favorable amount, that would be brought back to council for disposal of the sale of the property. And we may be able to put in some restrictions on just exactly, when we sell it, and if we want to look at some legal aspects of putting some deed restrictions on what it can be used for. We can look into also possibly some reserve amounts on the public bid, so that, we're not just taking the highest bid, which might be lower than we're willing to accept. So I'll explore that with the city attorney. Sounds like we may have some options available to us there. The reuse, again, would be for parking so far as indicated. If we don't get bids high enough, there are some other options we could explore in the future. Unfortunately, we also had a building right next to this that just collapsed a couple of weeks ago, and our crews are again busy out there cleaning up, bricks off the street. Thank God nobody was hurt or injured when it fell down. So that property owner is working towards the cleanup of that site and the full demolition of that building. So we'll, I guess, look for your direction and move it forward from here.
Thank you, Mr. Mack. Staff is asking for direction, so I'll ask for discussion.
Do we have an appraisal of the property?
No, sir.
I would just say let's get an appraisal and then price it accordingly and sell it.
That sounds good. Even if a buyer doesn't intend for it to be public parking, but for their tenants, then those tenants' previous parking spaces would be open to the public. So we could still gain some space downtown. I know we need parking.
With the benefit of the private sector making improvements.
Yes, and back on the tax rolls.
Right. I would like to ask the city attorney, you want to comment on the appraisal question, the timing of that? Would that be before or after the notice is put out publicly?
Well, I think you would want to do that before you set your reserve price.
That's just giving, all that's doing is giving you a real market value. You could do that, or you could do a broker price opinion find a commercial real estate agent and tell them, give us a broker price opinion. They could put something together to be a little cheaper, but an appraisal would be a sure enough certified way of valuing that thing, and then that would give you a pretty good idea of where you'd set your reserve at.
I concur.
All right. Any other comments? I believe there's a consensus that we sell it, but only after having.
I don't know if I would restrict it. In my opinion, that's already going to be kind of a hard asset to sell. In my opinion, I would leave it open. I mean, you've got all the restrictions, building codes and enforcements, and is that in the historical district too?
Yes, it is.
You've got, I mean, it's blanketed pretty heavily with restrictions already. I wouldn't think somebody may want to come in there and build a new building. There's not a building there. It's an open lot, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, that's, in my opinion, highest and best use is probably parking, but if someone wanted to build another building there, they could. So.
I guess the discussion about that had to do with the intent of why the council accepted the property as a donation in exchange for them not having to pay the demolition costs and cleanup, which was extensive. And speaking with the finance director, this is our intent, is to try to recoup what we can for the taxpayer out of the disposal of it. Whether that approaches the market appraisal value or not, we won't know.
Have we done any title work on it yet at all? Because did we pull it back from the tax? Was that one of those?
No, we condemned it, and we proceeded with that, and then the donation was made to the city, and I think it was just a as-is, right?
I would go ahead and get title works done, is what I'm saying. So that way, whenever you get your title work, you've got all that pre-done, and then put it out there however you auction them off and say, here it is, here's the reserve, and if you can get a bid close to it, move on it.
Yeah, I think we took that as is, a donation deed. Just sweet and simple.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, recently, the finance director informed me that there's still some back taxes on this that were unpaid, that we also need to get that cleared up as well as a part of this process.
All right, I'm hearing a consensus to sell, to get title work done, and
Appraisal.
the appraisal.
I'd order, the reason I'm saying that in that order, the appraisals right now are pretty well consistently, everybody's backed up. The title work, if you're gonna do an auction, you wanna have that done pre-auction, so that way if the auction goes off and somebody says, hey, I'm gonna give X amount of dollars for it, we're not going through the title process, then going and saying, oh wait, we've gotta do this, or you know what I'm saying? Get a clear title on it, because if there are some tax issues, or if there's a cousin of one of the gifters or something that was not, probated, but there's all different ways that the title can be cloudy. And so right now, some of that stuff's taking some time, especially if you got to go through the court system. So.
I believe in your backup, you said you'd had 3 people express interest in it.
One was a general kind of inquisitive type inquiry. There's one definitely seriously interested party. That's why we brought this forward to you tonight. If we didn't have that, I wouldn't feel as confident in moving this forward without that.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be auctioned.
No, it's a public process. Notice is put out. The interested parties can be invited, correct? But
It'd be a request for sealed bids.
Okay.
And then just like you're doing construction work or something, you tell them when you're going to open the bids, and you open them and see what you get.
Okay, thank you. Is that clear, Mr. Mack?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Item number 20, discuss and act on issuing a request for proposals for professional services to create a unified marketing program for the City of Paris, Paris Economic Development Corporation, and the Lamar County Chamber of Commerce. Staff?
Mayor and City Council, myself, as well as Maureen Hammond, our EDC Director, and Paul Allen, our Chamber Director, who are both present tonight. We'd like to bring for you tonight a project that we've all three been working on together. And so earlier this year, Maureen brought to Paul and myself the idea of having a concept of developing a unified marketing program for the city, EDC, and Chamber of Commerce. And so we've seen this in other communities. Denison did a project like this a few years ago, and we've also seen in our own experiences in separate communities that when all three entities are on the same page, and when developers see that, when they come to town and they see even the small things like your card, it looks the same, and we can have some uniqueness, some customization there, but we all have the same logos, the same messaging. That tells everyone that we're on the same page, and it tells everyone that we're working in the same direction, and that speaks to people. I know Maureen has given us a testimony here recently that a developer, they actually chose an entity to work with because simple things like the business cards, they were all the same, and so it showed them right from the get-go that all three entities, Chamber, EDC, and City, are working together. And so with that, this is not your typical branding project. We don't want to create some brand new. After having talked to some entities and some firms that do this, we like to have a firm come in here and help us identify what makes us who we are. And so, I mean, basically uncover what we already know, but bring it to light and bring it forward. And so. So to do this, the three entities, we would like to work together to put out an RFP to find the entity to help us work through the process of developing a new marketing strategy for our community. And so it'd be Ms. Hammond, Mr. Allen, myself working as a steering committee. But together we would be working with community representatives as a consultant to work through the process. And so, but tonight I'd like to ask you for the first step would be permission to pursue this RFP for a consultant. The three entities would all go in together equally. Since it's greater than $50,000, roughly around 60 is what we're estimating. We would all go in a third, and we have identified the funding necessary to do that. And so the EDC board as well as the Chamber of Commerce board have all been approached by this, and they're all in agreement to work with us. And so you are now the final step. And so we would pursue the RFP, find the firm, and bring a contract back to you for approval. So I'll entertain questions. Ms. Hammond and Mr. Allen here as well tonight to answer questions. But we do think this is an excellent opportunity for the three entities to work together as we always do. We want to show the world that we do that, and so by this process and the result thereof. So,
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Path or Ms. Hammond or Mr. Allen?
I will say, I don't have a question, but I will say this. I am extremely excited this is happening because I know while on my time with the EDC on the marketing committee, we had worked very hard to come up with different strategic ideas of how to move the branding for this community unified together, and this is awesome. So I am so happy to finally see this come about and on the table. And with that being said, for the record, if there's ever an opportunity for anyone on council to be able to help or to do anything, I'm interested. I know there's probably other council members that are very interested. We all as a community should be very thankful for this opportunity, man. This is awesome. So I'm excited to finally see this through. It's huge from the EDC perspective, from the community perspective, and business. Seeing businesses come to this town, seeing a unification through all three entities is major.
I agree.
I think it shows wonderful cooperation. So if there's no further discussion, I'll hear a motion to act on issuing a request for proposals.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Item number 21, receive presentation on third-party EMS billing and provide direction to staff. Mr. Path?
Yes, this is a exciting but big and new project that Mr. Thrasher and I would like to take on, and so Mr. Thrasher is here tonight, and so as you all know, we operate an EMS department, Emergency Medical Services Department, and so what's unique about Paris is that we also do our own billing. And so also when we run a call, we do all of our documentation, which we would need to do, but then our staff internally then goes about the process of putting it all together, getting the report together, and actually issuing a bill to the person or their insurance company, and then from that point, track, get it, negotiate back and forth. They're ignoring us, pursue them again, all that process there. So it is a very time-consuming process. We have 2.5 employees that do this, as well as Mr. Thrasher, who spends a lot of his time working with this, working with auditors, attorneys, working with insurance companies. It's a very tedious task. Now, 10 years ago or so, it was doable. We didn't have as many calls. It was manageable, but we're approaching over 10,000 calls this year, and that's not going away. And so we are seeing a trend upwards of lots and lots of calls. We do service the entire city and the county for all of our 911 and transport calls, and so that is a lot of calls to pursue. 10,000 a year is a lot to pursue. And so our staff, talking to staff as well as Mr. Thrasher and myself, we decided we need to go a different direction. And so with this, staff are approving of this. They recognize that we've gone beyond what we can handle. And so to do that, we'd be looking at third-party services. Now, I'm experienced with this. My last community in Nebraska City had a third-party EMS billing service. It's basically a turnkey. It is what it is, how it says. We, instead of having internal staff doing all the billing, we would work with a third party on the outside who has the experience, the expertise, the numbers. They keep it with regulations. This is an ever-changing field. When you're dealing with insurance companies, again, I think as everyone knows, insurance companies go into it with the intent of not paying, and then we have to work backwards from there. So we have to be tenacious. And that's a lot. And so given how big of an item of a revenue source this is for our budget, we recognize that in order for us to be more efficient and effective for our taxpayers, our ratepayers, we do need to look at changing services here. So with this is a part one of a two-part presentation due tonight, because we know this is a big change. We've also gone the extra step of trying to identify who we'd like to work with. And so we've identified a company named Emergicon LLC. They've been in Texas now for 15 plus years. They service over 160 plus Texas communities. And through our vetting and process, through Mr. Thrasher's contacts with other departments, as well as our own research into their proposals, they've given us a proposal. We looked at other communities' proposals. They do appear to be the most responsible and best company to work with to do this task. Cheaper is not better. We need a task. These entities are trying to bring us money. We need them to go after this with the tenaciousness that we need that we do our own staff here. So we want the best company to do this. So looking at their background, they have the skills and the numbers and the techniques there to get this done. I won't go through all my notes here, but I put it in here. But we want to work with Emergicon LLC to do this. Now, with this, there is also the process of procurement. Again, cheaper is not better, and so we looked to see what other communities do. We've working with some of the Dallas metro communities. We've identified state law actually gives us the option of piggybacking onto another person's procurement process. Procurement is also it's a very time-consuming, tedious. It could be a costly process, but also too you get what you get. And so we don't want just anything. We want what we can find to be the best. And so working with some communities in Dallas metro area, particularly Coppell, we'd like to pursue it's the Texas Government Code, Title 7, Chapter 791, particularly .025 A and C, to where we can piggyback on their already bid pricing in their contracts and get what they have and bring it here. And so again, they've already procured, they've already met the requirements in state law to procure the service. We just get their deal, except in Paris. And again, the opening part of the statute says the reason this code is in existence is to increase efficiency and effectiveness of local governments by authorizing them to contract to the greatest possible extent with one another and with agencies of the state. So they recognize that, hey, if they've already bid this out and they got good pricing, why not everyone jump on board with that? And so that's what we'd like to do tonight or at the next meeting with City of Coppell. So to do this, we reached out to Capel. They have agreed to form an interlocal agreement with us to give us access to their pricing and vice versa. If we bid things out, they would have access to our pricing as well. They have a fully staffed procurement department. I have reviewed the RFP. It was excellent. If we were to do this ourselves, I would copy it almost word for word. It's just replace Paris for Capel. It was an excellent RFP. So it was a very good process that they utilized there. They awarded a contract to Emergicon LLC back in July 14, 2021. So we would like to join them in local to get access to that agreement. Now, obviously, this is a triangular relationship here. The vendor has to also agree to contract with us for the same pricing they gave for Capel. And so, working with Emergicon, they have agreed to enter an agreement with us, but they made a condition. They have asked that we adjust our rates to match Capel. We do have very, very low rates. And so when we look at those surrounding us, other EMS departments, our rates are approaching the bottom. So that's part of the reason why we do have to subsidize the department with general funds right now. So they have asked, obviously this is their money that they get paid. If we get paid, they collect 7% of the revenue. So they have asked that in order for us to get an agreement that mirrors Capel, we would have to increase our rates to Capel. Now I've worked with Mr. Thrasher. The rates do appear to be fair from what we've seen in other communities. I want to say very carefully here, again, this is not a rate increase to the taxpayers, only those who obviously need our services. And so, again, insurance steps in a lot of cases, Medicare, Medicaid. So this is not just an automatic increase to the taxpayers, it's an increase to those who use our services. But at the same time, it will help us reduce the cost to the taxpayers, or at least move it to another need in the department or in the city. So with that, we would be an interlocal agreement with Capel. It would be an increase of our rates to match that of Capel, and then it would be an agreement with Emergicon LLC that mirrors the Capel as well. Now, working with staff, obviously we would not be laying anyone off. We have other ways. We have other tasks for them to do. There are a lot of tasks that go undone right now, and so this would free up a lot of time for staff to pursue other needed tasks. It would free up Mr. Thrasher's time tremendously, so he can actually get back to more management instead of having to talk to the attorneys, the insurance companies on a very daily basis. And so overall, this creates a much greater efficiency for us. Working with Emergicon, they've given us numbers for other communities. They average about 30% increases from what we're doing right now. So this should be a good turning point in our revenues for the community. And since we are approaching 10,000 plus calls a year, we are on the brink of needing to add an ambulance to our service. Our staff are running ragged as it is. COVID does not help that to begin with, but we are looking at needing to add an ambulance, which is a 24/7, which more staffing, a box, and everything. So this revenue source would be go a long ways towards meeting that need. And the nice thing is, if we get this done now, we get ahead of all that. So I'll take any questions you have. Again, this is a part 1 of 2. If you're approving of this, we will bring back to you at the next meeting in a local agreement with Capel, an ordinance for the rate increases to match Capel, as well as an agreement with Emergicon LLC to go to third-party billing services. And Mr. Thrasher can answer any questions as well about his experience looking at Emergicon and so forth. But I'll take any questions.
I have one question about the rate increase. You said match Capel's.
Yep.
We're really looking at only being almost a third of what they charge. Is that correct?
No, I'm sorry. If you look at this here, what I show here is this is the current parish rate, and then we'd be matching the Capel rate on the right side there. And so
we would increase that much.
Yeah, we would go from the parish rate to the Capel rate. Yes, we're that far below the other communities. Again, we don't like to propose rate increases. I get that, but again, EMS, it's like utilities, is a business, and we have to pay our bills.
And Medicare and Medicaid and most insurance companies would pay at that rate?
Medicare, Medicaid, they have set thresholds. They don't pay beyond that. That's just the way it works. And Mr. Thrasher, if you can answer more to that, if you wouldn't mind. I know you deal with them on a much more regular basis than I do.
Yep. Yes, Medicare and Medicaid pay a fixed rate, a certain percent of it. They tell us what they're going to pay, not vice versa, so those would remain the same. It's the private insurance and the private pay that we're leaving money on the table. We're leaving a lot of money on the table compared to the national standard rate. So those are the ones that would make a big portion of the difference, and gives the option to offer contracts or discounts to frequently used nursing homes, things like that we're not able to do right now because we're so close to the Medicare. We cannot go below that for anyone by federal law. We're going to be wearing orange. So that's the minimum we use. So there's no leeway in there for us to move. So that's kind of the way of adjusting it. And they're actually, the pay rates are a little less than Hopkins County even. So we're really small in the middle of several big ones that use that.
Well, that was going to be my next.
The increase in the rates, it won't have any extra out-of-pocket for, the residents, correct? The citizens?
Only those that use the service, and again,
Right.
it's for the private pays. I mean, they'll still have to make up the difference, or the 20% deductible that Medicare pays. They'll have to make up that difference.
I don't mean to catch you off guard, but have you compared cities our size in our region and what their fees are?
Just Hopkins County, I've requested it from Bonham and Texarkana and Mount Pleasant, and I haven't got those numbers back, but I do know that LifeNet and Titus Regional EMS all use Emergicon as their billing service as well. The only one that's still private pay in our area is Bonham. They run about 4,400 calls a year, according to their site. So, that's what it boils down to, is the volume. I mean, we've had two primary billers for over 20 years or more. And back when the call volume was in the 5,000, 6,000 range, well, it's approaching 10, and that's never changed. In fact, we lost one about 11 months ago, a primary biller. So, those are not easily replaceable. All it takes is one more person to retire or something, and we'll be stuck. It takes years to become a very proficient biller. I mean, years of experience.
Are we currently backlogged? Are we currently backlogged in that department? Obviously, I mean, you only had, 2, and I think you're down to 1, what you're saying.
No, we still have
You
to,
still have
but
two.
that's all.
Okay.
That's all it would take.
Do you still have a lot of workload left, or?
Yeah, they're going back on the Niles as far back as July still.
Oh, goodness.
And I mean, they're keeping up on the original billing as best they can, but they work Saturdays, Sundays. If there's a holiday on a Friday or Saturday, they'll come in Sunday. They have to, because at 26 to 32 calls a day average, they can't show up Monday and have 120, 130 calls to work, or they'll never catch up. And it should be 5 billers proportionally to do it, and, that's not feasible. They have, I think, 187 billers on staff. They work 24/7. So they get on them as we do them.
I like the idea of outsourcing the billing, because we can use those employees, certainly. I know those ladies, and they're valuable employees for some other job I'm sure they could do in the city. Any other discussion?
I mean, I echo what you just said, but also I agree that, deal is that's a lot of stuff to handle. And at the end of the day, if we've got to modernize and get third party get it outsourced, and I'd rather go down that path. I think the heartburn that I have is obviously the rate increase, seeing it how good we had it, potentially moving to a higher rate. And I'm just trying to look at that in my head. Now, I will ask, if this is passed this evening, could we request to get more information from some of these other cities? I think you've already initiated it, but if they do not respond, then can we look at other cities also?
I don't think it's an action item tonight. I think we're just
It's
just a
consensus.
Looking at it on a cash flow standpoint, EMS, and I'm not being critical here, but we've looked at it before. We're cash deficient. We have to take cash out of the budget to put that in. So, in my opinion, to make it sustainable for us to own an EMS, continue to own an EMS thing in the city of Paris, we have to be, you've got needs and wants and things and coming up and maybe adding, I mean, we've got to be cash flow sensitive. And I mean, granted, we're not going to make all kinds of crazy money off of it. That's not the intention. The intention is for at least to pay for itself or get as close as we can to that. That's a service we offer within the city. I think you have to go up. Any of the other EMS, local or privately owned, are having to fight this same battle. So.
If we were to privatize our service, I mean, I can't guarantee you this, but I would venture to say rates would go up.
Oh yeah.
So, because obviously it is a business, and the reason why we've been able to subsidize is because we're a city. But just like our utilities, it's our general funds could go in other places. I know everyone has ideas where the general funds could go to, and so besides this,
Obviously, we're not making a profit.
no.
I mean, we bring in a lot. We billed 4.8 million last year and actually collected 2.946 million of it. So, had to write off a lot. Of course, that's just part of the business, but.
Yeah. I think you got to go up, or at least to be competitive, or not competitive, but to at least retain your cash. I mean, we get to a point to where our services are going to go down because we don't have enough money to, our deficit. And
We're serving a large area, 930
Yeah.
miles, and the call volume again is over the last 10 years has gone from.
And it's going to get worse as we grow, and you're going to have. I mean, I'm not being critical of what y'all are doing. I'm saying we've got to say you're set by the insurance rate, and we all. I mean, I understand it. I mean, it is what it is, and so if we don't raise that up, then you're just going to get worse.
You say the Medicaid and the Medicare cap number varies?
Yes, sir. It's the type of service they have, whether it's an advanced life support or basic life support call, varies. But it's set by them. It's nothing we can change. Most of those have a 20% copay, which they make up the difference, and a lot of times that's covered by secondary insurance of some sort. But that's about 46% or so of our total collections. So the rest of it's private insurance, private pay, those kind of things. So, yeah, those won't change. The federal government tells us what they're going to pay, not vice versa.
Ms. Stone, do you have any input?
We gotta do what we gotta do.
Well,
Well, I
appreciate
think
it. There's a lot that we're not doing. I wish we could do because it's taking really 4 of us almost just to keep up it right now. If it goes up any more, the volume, I'll be in trouble.
Well, I think I'm hearing a consensus that we go along with this plan. All right.
We'll bring that back at the November 8th council meeting. So thank you.
Thank you both very much. Item number 22, convene into executive session pursuant to Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, consultation with attorney to receive legal advice from the city attorney about 1, pending or contemplated litigation, and/or 2, on matters in which the duty of an attorney to her client under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflict with this chapter as follows. Ground lease hangar A-7. B, Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code, 1, to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee as follows. Annual evaluation of the city manager. C, Section 55.1074 of the Texas Government Code, 1, to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee as follows. Annual evaluation of the municipal judge. The time is 6:47, and City Council will convene into executive session. Number 23, reconvene into open session and possibly take action on those matters discussed in executive session. The time is 7:30 p.m. and City Council is reconvened. There is no action to be taken. Number 24, consider and approve future events for City Council and/or city staff pursuant to Resolution Number 2004-081. I take that back. I believe the action we take is on agenda item number 22, Section C, is to table the judge's annual evaluation until the next meeting. Do I hear a motion for that?
So move.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. Any items for future council meetings? All right, seeing none, I'll hear a motion for adjournment. And
So moved.
second. So, amen. Thank you.